Our next event is a lecture demonstration and panel with the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra. A few brief announcements before I pass the mic. Please note this session is being live captioned and will be available in English, French, Mandarin, and Spanish using the link in the chat. Your microphones will be muted, but feel free to engage with other participants via the chat feature. My colleagues John and Rebecca will be moderating and happy to help. There will also be an opportunity to ask our guest speakers questions. Please use the Q&A feature for those questions. With that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Maestro Louis Langrée and Walker Beard.
Thank you, Laurel. It's a wonderful time for us to just have this opportunity with members of the orchestra to speak about the evolution of a wunderkind who will then become one of the most important genius in the history of music. And I'm so glad that I'm joined with some musicians of the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra, Sophia Kessinger and Michael Roth, violin, Chihiro Allen on the viola, and Ann Kim on the cello. And we'll have also discussion with Tanya Vitek and David Punto. And Walker Beard is our production manager of music programming. And I'm glad to have this time with you with some recorded excerpts on the campus of Lincoln Center. Yes, if you pass by Lincoln Center, the halls are dark, but the heart of Lincoln Center is still vivid through all this music and also our discussion, Zoom events, teaching, etc. So why Mozart? First, year after year, we are together with the musicians of the orchestra cultivating our own style, our own sound, our own identity. And whether we play Mozart, it's mostly Mozart, it's not only Mozart. We can play Mozart music before Mozart or after, in the Romantic era or the 20th century, or even contemporary music. But it's always through what we are cultivating year after year, the specific Mostly Mozart sound. So what does it mean? It means that Mozart, apart from his genius, of course, amazing genius, lived in a very, very special time when the world would completely change. Of course, in art, but also on politics, on economics, on social, everything. So he was born in a time when you had this Austro-Hungarian Empire, so powerful, and for centuries you didn't question the power of the king, the aristocracy, the dukes, the counts, or on the clergy for the archbishop, etc., etc. Well, on that time, something amazing new happened, which was democracy. And one can feel that also in the music of Mozart. Before, very often you had either a sonata for one instrument or a concerto accompanied by a group of musicians or a violin sonata accompanied by a pianist. But with Mozart, it's not anymore a violin sonata accompanied by a pianist. It's a sonata for piano and violin, people dialoguing together. In string quartets, the invention of string quartet is just democracy. You don't have the first violin, who is the most important, and then accompanied by other people. You have every voice being equal and speaking and dialoguing together. We'll hear that in the Jupiter Symphony. And of course, these masterpieces for orchestra, it's really the birth of the orchestra. And the more voices you have, the more colors you have, the richest the possibility of dialogue will be possible. And this is something so important in the history of music, but also in the history of the civilization. Mozart was not only an amazing musician, he was a mensch. He was somebody who thought that music should express something bigger than music itself. That's why there is always a special meaning, a special either rhetorical gesture or this balance between the very clear form and structure of a piece and the expression. In this time of classical era, after Baroque or Rococo, where the structure is so important, and after classic era, you have Romanticism, where the expression will explode and make the form explode even. Mozart is in this moment where the balance is absolutely perfect and miraculous. And as a person, he was, member of the Freemason, the Lodge of the New Crowned Hope. That was the name of his lodge in Vienna, which of course spoke about liberté, égalité, fraternité on the musical side and on the global side. So let's listen to his very first symphony. Can you imagine? He was age 8, made his grand tour, huge European tour. I mean, now when we are touring, we spend a maximum 3 weeks on tour. Mozart spent more than 3 years without coming back home. And he spent a bit more than a year in London. And of course, he met the greatest kings and queens in Versailles, in everywhere he went. But most important, he met composers, he met musicians, he met artists. And the more he learned from all these landscapes and artistic landscapes, the more he could be himself. And in London, he met a very, very important composer, which was Johann Christian Bach, one of the sons of Johann Sebastian Bach. And for 5 months, he studied composition with him. Now, if it's a genius like Mozart with the capacity of absorbing so many elements, it would, like if a normal person like us would have taken, 5 years of lessons. But during this time, Mozart, when he was 8 years old, composed his very, very first symphony.
Before you continue, I'll just interject so that participants know the string quartet here that you will be playing excerpts from will now go off camera. But if any of the participants have questions as Louis gives his talk about the first and last symphonies, please put them in the Q&A, and the members of the orchestra will be keeping an eye on them and answering. As a point of description for me, I'm a white male with brown hair and a beard, wearing a white button-down shirt, coming to you from Long Island City, New York. I'm sitting in front of a big house plant. So Louis, the rest of us will go away and while you give your talk, but as I said, we'll be available in the comments to answer any questions.
Yes, and the only difference between you and me is I don't have a plant behind me, but we have the same shirt, the same beard. So that's a good way to see us. So we'll have with some members of the orchestra a sort of bonsai version of this symphony, because it is written for an orchestra, but for this demonstration, we'll only have a string quartet, and actually at 7:30 later, you will have the full rendition of this symphony. Isn't it amazing to hear already the seeds of this wunderkind who then would give the most extraordinary fruits some years after and bring one of the most important pieces ever written. And that's the reason why we still need Mozart now. Of course, the language is not modern. The syntax is classical, but the message is timeless because it speaks about humanity, it speaks about sensitivity, sensibility, it speaks about being together. And certainly an orchestra is the best way to illustrate what the world should be. Yes, people play together, but also they listen together. If you don't listen to your colleague, there is no music. You just play the notes. So it's really the most perfect metaphor of living together, speaking your own voice, and be part of this collective journey. So let's listen to the first bars that Mozart ever wrote in his symphonic repertoire. And it was actually his 16th piece, but his very first symphony. So Jesse, you can play the excerpt number 1. So here you heard the exposition of this beginning, and you hear in the first bars the character, bam, 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 and then the response has to be different. You have this very smooth, little tender sighs, which bring the contrast. It even feels slower, because before you have this and then it's actually the same tempo, but the pulse is twice longer. So what do these first notes bring us? The character, determination, affirmation, the key. It starts on the tonica, then it ascends, bam, 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 to the dominant. And certainly you can feel the character of this dominant and tonicity. And if we need to have contrast, bam, 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 ascend, bam, 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 like a mirror. But of course it would be boring. So we have bam, bam, bim. And then Mozart will compose this bar with repeating 8 times the same note. So the note itself is longer, but because of the repetition, it gives this extra adrenaline feeling. And then going down, bam, 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 bam. Let's listen, Jesse, if you can play just the 3 first bars. That's the excerpt number 2. And now, Jesse, let's listen to the excerpt again, number 1, and listen to this first enunciation of the theme, then the answer, the response, then Mozart repeat exactly the same 8 bars. You have to remember that on that time, the only music which was played was contemporary music. So the people who heard this symphony heard it only once in their life. There was no YouTube. There was not, I would like to listen to it again. No, next time you would listen to a concert with Mozart, he would compose another symphony and another piano concerto and another sonata or aria for singers. So that's why you have all this repetition to memorize it, to print it into your brain and body. Let's have number 1. Yes, good. And then after this excerpt, this first page of music, we need more. We need more excitement. So let's not wait and listen to this next excerpt, which will be the number 4. So why do we have suddenly the feeling that the expression is even more boiling than before? Because we have all these variations of rhythm, of pulse. If you listen carefully next time, we hear the cello. Anne is playing, but then Chihiro and Michael are playing, which is twice faster and gives this sort of electricity. You have Sophia playing, and how amazing it is that at age 8, Mozart already has this science of how to color, how to depict, how to bring this constant interest. A normal composer would have make all the accompaniment the same, like and the first violin would play, I don't know, 16th note. So if we can hear now what Mozart could have written if he would be a normal composer, I would be very proud to have composed that, but definitely for Mozart it was not enough. Let's play number 5, excerpt number 5. Good. Jessie, can you play again this number 5, just to see that in the accompaniment, everybody is playing the same rhythm, pop, 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 and then you have the melody on the first violin. Excerpt number 5. And now, let's listen again what Mozart really wrote. So it's almost the same, but the difference make a total contrast picture. Back to number 4. This is really the sign of a genius, and of course for Mozart, of a future genius, but still already this imagination, this courage to invent from something very basic. And yes, this first theme that we heard in the beginning, pom, 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 there is nothing extraordinary about that. But the way he puts it together makes it absolutely incredible. Like on this excerpt, we have the electricity by all these various rhythm, like the first violin giving like a whip to the contrast between very loud and suddenly very soft. There is also something which is so important. We spoke about repetition, and certainly repetition is something so important in music, but that's the difference between making music and playing the notes. In real life, when we repeat something, you say something to somebody, and then you have to insist. You say it twice. You say it 3 times. You say it 4 times. Sometimes you say it a 5th time. You almost whisper it, which has a different effect on the person you speak to. And in the music, it's exactly the same. To say something or to say it again is a completely different thing. We'll hear again here in Mozart's adding adrenaline, adding electricity, adding interest by listen to playing. Jesse, you can play the excerpt number 6. So here one can hear also repeating the same scale 3 times, every time higher. But in other places, if you listen to the musicians, they play and then conclusion when they repeat it, they start softer, and softer sounds actually more insistent. You can hear also in the beginning of this excerpt what Mozart and all his contemporaries, especially in Sturm und Drang, storm and stress. It was not royalties for centuries and then suddenly revolution. No, it was boiling. And instead of having dum, bum, 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 Mozart had syncopation, ba, 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 bam, 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 which gives by itself this energy. So let's listen to the excerpt number 7. Yes? See, you can play again this number 7. Listen, this is what Mozart didn't write. Bum, 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 bum. It's normal, but for a genius, normal is just not enough. Same excerpt. Yes, and now let's listen directly to number 8, what Mozart wrote. So these little details make a totally different picture. Let's listen again to the number 6, excerpt number 6, when you have this beginning, and then this repetition, more, or less. So this is a very simple piece, very simple excerpt, but actually you could spend days and days and days looking like an archaeologist for the magic of this piece. And I really, again, cannot encourage you enough to listen to the full piece without me interrupting all the time, and just listening to the full symphony, which is, I don't know, 12-minute symphony. Then there is this amazing piano concerto with Richard Good, and then the Jupiter Symphony. So Jesse, let's go directly to the Jupiter Symphony and the number 15, the excerpt number 15. This is a total contrast, because before, as you could hear, you had people either speaking one voice together, speaking or making music, playing exactly the same note or same group of notes. And when I spoke about democracy, this is now Jupiter Symphony, which is just the culmination of Mozart's symphonic art and science. Actually, when science and mathematics and art merge together in such a high point that they become one. And now you don't have one voice, main voice, accompanied by other people. You have, on this moment, which is the end of the last movement, this stretto, which means that when everything is condensed, actually like today when we are facing so many crises, so not only the COVID, of course, but on every level, and you have this moment where all this moment where, how can I say, for us musicians somehow, and especially for conductors, because we don't produce sound, we need the musician. Time has stopped. And in the same time, everything is going 20 times faster than normal. It's a moment where all, this crisis together put the world and put us in a moment where we have to think different. We have to be innovative, even more. We have to change the rules that we felt were there forever. And Mozart did that. Mozart, in this symphony, mixes every genre, sacred music. At some point, you almost have the feeling that it is sacred music with a chorus. It's instrumental music. It is also chamber music. It has this special moment where all the different various musical art forms are united together and create this extraordinary energy. So let's listen to an excerpt of this stretto, and this is the number 15. Wonderful. So here, what do we have? We have all the themes put together And like in a Rubik's Cube, Mozart organized them together. And what are all these themes? You could have the first one, which sounds almost like sacred music. If you would put words, there would be words in Latin, not in German or in Italian or in English. It could be Magnificat or Agnus Dei, but it has this sacred music resonance. Let's listen only to this first theme. This is the excerpt number 16. So at some point, every musician of the orchestra, really every musician, will play this theme, and it will be mixed with another one which sounds not sacred. Pam pam pi, could be Constance, which was the name of Mozart's wife. Let's listen the excerpt number 17, when you will have this Agnus Dei and this Constance, and the two together merge and make beautiful music. So this is quite easy. We have two themes which are played by various group of instruments, and here individual players. Let's make it a little bit more complicated. Let's add a third theme, and that could be Wolfgang Amadeus, Wolfgang Amadeus. So let's do the excerpt number 18. It becomes already more dense and complicated. Let's listen just once, this number 18. So make sure you can identify everything. You don't listen globally. You listen to pa 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 pa. You listen to pam pam pi, and you listen to pa 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 pam pam pa pa pa. Three different things. Number 18 again. And let's add another one. Pam, 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 Jupiter. That's the number 19. So this was just an example of the journey of Mozart between age 8 and then 24 years later, being the same man, but then in full master of composition. And of what is so unique with Mozart is that this music elevates us. Mozart very rarely speaks about himself. He speaks to us. He helps us to breathe higher. Tonight at 7:30, we'll start with the first symphony, the concert, which was again the concert for the 50th anniversary of Mostly Mozart, performed by the wonderful musicians of the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra. And the concert will end with with the Jupiter Symphony. We have the Alpha and the Omega of Mozart, the symphonist. I think I have spoken enough. If you have some question, and if you have some question to the musicians, that's probably better than me continuing to speak about it. Walker.
Hello, thank you, Louis. That was excellent. Can I ask our string quartet to come back now too?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Sophia. Hello, Chihiro. Hello, Mike.
So bravo to you guys. Thank you for making those recordings for us in the grove outside. May I ask you all to briefly introduce yourselves and give a description, physical description? You can go Sophia, Mike, Chihiro, and...
Hi, I'm Sophia Kessinger. I'm a violinist with Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra. I am half Japanese. I have dark hair. I am wearing a black Mostly Mozart t-shirt from 2011, and I have a shoji screen behind me.
Hello, I'm Michael Roth. I am a violinist in the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra. I'm wearing glasses, which I need to play Mozart. And I'm wearing a shirt from 2019. I don't need that to play Mozart, but it's always nice. And I have a little window fan behind me.
Hi, I'm Chihiro Allen. I'm a violist from the Mostly Mozart Orchestra, and I'm wearing a blue Mostly Mozart t-shirt from 2015. I'm sitting on a grayish blue couch with a white wall in the background.
Hi everyone, my name is Ann Kim. I'm a cellist with the Mozart Festival Orchestra. I'm an Asian woman. I am wearing a red Mostly Mozart t-shirt. I have black hair pulled back in a ponytail, and I'm sitting in front of a dark brown framed picture of a red flower.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you again for playing for us outside in the grove during this time. So speaking of that, some questions that have come in is, did Mozart arrange his symphonies into string quartets or vice versa? Or how did you make that realization of the symphony?
Can I answer to that?
Yes.
Yes. No, Mozart wrote it for an orchestra. It's true that for some pieces he made some arrangements and even various arrangements for different groups. But for that, we wanted to take the opportunity to have almost live music. And again, it's so wonderful to hear the four of you playing and playing outdoors. I mean, if anyone would try to play outdoors, we know how dreadful it is because there is no resonance to the acoustic. So you made it sound like if it was indoors. Bravo, that was great. But Mozart, no, Mozart didn't write any arrangement. But as on that time, most of the voices were actually for strings, and the winds had more role of adding some weight, some power to the music, but rather than having their own individual lines.
And so that would be equally why you can represent the symphony well with the string quartet only, rather than a full orchestra? Because the string parts are most prominent?
Yes, they are the most prominent. It also speaks about something very important. In Mozart's time, real orchestra were very, of course, different. And actually now we are going back to that. You can have orchestra musician who plays in orchestra, who teach, who play chamber music, who plays as soloist. I mean, they are just musicians. They are not in a box. And in Mozart's time, it was exactly the same. So what is an orchestra in Mozart time? It's a chamber music group, like we heard the quartet, but extended. What is important is always the dialogue between musicians. And the conductor has to create the conditions of this dialogue rather than imposing something like you have to do later in the other pieces for big orchestra.
One other question I have here is, why is the 44th Symphony called the Jupiter Symphony?
It was not Mozart's choice. It was then a nickname that people would add. I think it's not a bad nickname actually, because at this end, it's going so high. It's stratospheric music, if you want. So it was also to make it. To show the difference between the Symphony number 40 that he composed exactly on the same time. He had on his desk both symphonies, which are the most opposite symphony, the G minor being the most pre-romantic and dense and tormented, and the Jupiter, which is the most elevated.
And then a question for the quartet that came in is, does this group of players play together regularly? And what do you do the rest of the year? How about Chihiro, do you want to start us off?
Hi. We don't regularly play together as a string quartet, but Anne and I, the cellist and I, we are both in the New York City Ballet Orchestra, so we play there together. And also Michael, of course, the violinist. The three of us play in the City Ballet Orchestra. And then me and Sophia, the other violinist, we both sub at the Met Opera Orchestra. So in different places we do work together, but we don't necessarily perform together as a string quartet.
So then can I ask too, one question that came in is about the, thinking of the components of Mozart and how they reflect in history. So the different historical components of Mozart being highlighted, and do you guys see a correlation in different parts of the world and how local histories are phrased, how his music is interpreted and phrased by local histories, or do you think of it more globally when you're thinking of how history influenced art?
I think that's a Louis question.
I don't know if my English is good enough to answer to this question. For each genius, of course, they speak about their times. All the message, Mozart's message when he writes Abduction from the Seraglio, or speaks about the situation there. But because they are genius, it doesn't speak about a situation. It uses a situation to give a bigger picture where everybody in any civilization, any race, any gender could relate to, because he speaks about living together, about all these elements of tension at the end being, bringing peace to all of that, and then apotheosis to that. Of course, in Mozart's time, there was also these crises. I mean, political crisis, economic crisis, everything, races with the Turks, it doesn't speak about today, but the message is still relevant today, not only from Mozart. When you listen to or you read Greek tragedy, they speak to us today. These are timeless. The great message are bigger than music, are bigger than painting or literature. It's a tool to make us feeling that we share the same destiny on the same planet, and we have to be good to each other. You cannot do music, good music, if you don't listen and respond to your neighbor. Doesn't mean that you say the same thing, but you have to listen, you have to respond, you have to find a way to live musically in a Mozart symphony, or to live together. This is so important today.
Yes. A couple interesting questions came in about ensemble. So one is, as an individual in an orchestra or in a quartet in this case, how much freedom and importance is put on the individual in any given performance? And do the performances vary from one to another? And then the same question to be posed to a conductor, and how if the conductor's interpretation, if you feel now the interpretation would be as personal as it was during the time of Mozart. And then on those same lines, can you talk a little bit about what a chamber orchestra is, what the typical size would be in Mozart's time, and if it stayed the same?
Who starts?
I'll start, if I can remember the first part of the question. Could you remind me again, Walker?
The first part is about the importance of the individual in a quartet or in an orchestra, how much influence you have over the musicality of the piece, and whether or not it varies.
Right. I think from performance to performance, it varies an incredible amount. Excuse me. That was my phone's on. Anyway, sorry for the phone. It can vary a lot, because what happens in a performance is that we're all being inspired by each other. What we're trying to do in a rehearsal is find a common way to approach a piece and a common way to be inspired. So there's a lot of stuff that we do in a rehearsal that's nitpicky in a way, and trying to play with each other, and not necessarily always the big picture. We get to the performance and it's always a relief, because we've done all that work, and all of a sudden we're trying to find common inspiration with each other. So because of that, some things pop out in a performance different ways. I'll hear an English horn, I'll hear a second violin solo, and all of a sudden that means something different to me. And then because I've changed what I'm listening to, somebody else will change the way they're listening to me. And it's a domino effect. And of course, the better the music we play, like Mozart, the more likely that is to happen. Even a piece like Jupiter, which we've done how many times? I mean, I'm listening to the quartet, just the fugue section we just played, and it's still amazing to me to listen to. So I'm still inspired differently every time.
And I would like to add to that as well. I would say, with all the rehearsing that we do and all the, as Michael calls, nitpicking that we do in the rehearsals on different phrases, it also allows us to have a certain type of organic, way of playing together, so that when we are in performances, it just feels easy. Everything flows very well. And then there's also space for inspiration to hit in the moment. So, and that a lot of times comes from Louis as well. I would say there's so many moments where we would have rehearsed a part in the symphony so many times, but then suddenly a different sort of energy comes from Louis from the podium, and we all just react. And it's instantaneous, and it's just natural. It's almost like we're not thinking of it at all. And that's kind of the magic of a live performance, is that it creates space for magic moments like this to happen.
And then what about the size of a chamber orchestra and the experience of playing in a chamber orchestra versus a larger ensemble. Sophia, do you want to take that one?
So you're asking, how is it different playing this piece specifically? I mean, the two symphonies specifically in a quartet setting as opposed to a chamber orchestra or orchestra size?
Yeah, if you can, I mean, if there is a difference to you, if you could articulate, this quartet realization versus a chamber orchestra like Mostly Mozart versus a symphonic orchestra like the New York Philharmonic. Does that?
Well, first of all, there are some instruments missing, of course, that adds to it. But with all the rehearsals and all the performances we've done of these pieces, I think anything that was not heard in the recordings that you heard were already in our head. So we were referring to all these things while we were performing. Playing in a smaller group is a lot more intimate. You can really hear exactly what the person is saying. It's like having a conversation with 2 people, 3 people, as opposed to trying to talk to 20 people in a room. You lose some things the bigger an ensemble gets, which is why you need somebody like a section leader and then a conductor to help facilitate what you're trying to say. So in terms of that, definitely I've had experience, of course, playing in chamber orchestras. I do also sub with the New York Philharmonic, so I understand that there is also a different kind of feeling of sound surrounding you when you play in a larger ensemble. It's a lot more encompassing. It's very big, especially when there's brass around you. If it's something smaller like a string quartet, you hear more detail, especially with strings, because we're all related as instruments. You can really zone in on more style or phrasing. If somebody decides they want to try something different that one time, you can try and go with them. There's more of a conversational aspect, is what I would say.
And in Mozart's time, there was no standard orchestras. Depending on the finances, if you could afford many musicians, depending on the venue. Most of the time, concerts were done in little castles or palace, or sometime in open air venues. There is this letter from Mozart to his father when he said that he had 20, I think it was 20, if not more, first violins for his symphony. He was thrilled about that. One thing that I would like to add also, because we have played for such a long time together. We have done more than 165 concerts together over the last 20 years. And I'm not the only conductor to conduct Jupiter Symphony with the Mostly Mozart Orchestra. And when I don't conduct, I love coming and attending rehearsals and concerts. And I remember very, very, very precisely this Jupiter Symphony when you played it with Andrew Manzi, when you played it with Ivan Fischer. It was very, very different. But yet what we have cultivated together was so strong then that what they had was absolutely wonderful. It's not only, we are not used to play it like that. It's not disturbing. On the contrary, it's adding, and that's the joy of making music together. It's never the same. From one concert to the other, it's never the same. So from year to year, and with various musicians or conductors, it's of course very, very different. And this music is not stuck in one box. This is the way we should do Mozart. Mozart is big, large enough to welcome, even to ask for various interpretations, as long as we respect the sensibility and sensitivity of what this music is.
Great. So actually, on that note, thinking about playing music traditionally with a conductor in a concert hall, I think we can now think a little bit about the next thing we want to talk about, which ties into Mozart as an innovator, but also our current times, because the elephant in the room, or in this case, the string quartet in the Grove, is that we're not making music like that right now because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And so I wanted to spend just a couple minutes discussing what do we do now and why is it important in a time when we're not only in a global pandemic, we're in a time of civil unrest, we're in a politically charged nation as we approach a presidential election, and so much of what's around us is divisive and isolating. And I think we all see music as a human unifier and something that can bring us together despite our differences. And so it's something that's incredibly important that we find a way around this obstacle to bring music to our community. And so for you guys, and Dave Punto, if you're there, you can join this group now. He's our principal timpanist from the orchestra. But let's just talk about a couple things that we've been doing. And so first of all, playing in the Grove, how was that experience for you? Was it, how is it playing with a mask and sitting far apart and being outside? And what did it mean for you to experience that at this time? Should we go back to Chihiro?
So I think when I say I missed playing in person with my colleagues and my friends, I speak for all of us. Many of us, including the Mostly Mozart Orchestra, many orchestras and ensembles around the world have been putting together videos of us performing together. But that is done in your own home, listening to a click, and like Michael said earlier about inspiring each other in a live performance, there was none of that. And you're just playing, recording your own part all by yourself at home and sending it in through email, through the internet, and then somebody else will edit it and put it together and you can watch it on the screen. When you think about if this kind of situation would have happened 30, 40 years ago, we couldn't have done any of that. So when you think about that, it's better than nothing. But actually sitting together at the Lincoln Center campus outdoors and hearing each other's sound directly and breathing together and making music together was a really wonderful experience. I really miss that. It was like water that I didn't have for 4 months, and I finally got it.
I felt the same way. I mean, I was there with you guys. One of the questions was, did Louis' lecture points influence the quartet? And I can tell you definitively yes, but that was another point of innovation for us because Louis doesn't live in New York. And so I was holding a laptop with Louis Skyping into the quartet and a wireless speaker so that he could tell them and they could play. It was a surreal experience, but it was worth every minute to hear players playing music together for the first time in months. But Chihiro, speaking of what you were just saying as far as editing together virtual concertizing and thinking about that and its effectiveness, it's something that is better than nothing, like you said. And then as an orchestra manager, thinking how can we use this in a way that engages the community? And so one of the projects that Mostly Mozart put together was this Memorial for Us, a presentation on the Memorial for Us All series that's on social media. So I just want to share a couple seconds of that, just see if you could play the parrot. And then David, when we come back, if you'll just explain a little bit about making it so that we can hear the pitfalls of what virtual concertizing entails.
Yes, I'm David Punto. I am the timpanist of the orchestra, and I'm a white male with mostly gray hair, coming to you with glasses, coming to you from my living room in Berlin, Germany at around midnight, so my time. So the pitfall, what it was, I normally would not have been playing that chime part. I'm the timpanist of the orchestra, but I was so happy to be able to participate and be a part of this project. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It did entail going around some obstacles because in Germany, we were still in lockdown and there was just no way to get an instrument. So I called a friend who had a rental service. He found one for me. Then we were tuning at A440, but over here it's A443. So there were some complications involved, but we got it done. I recorded it here in my living room, actually right about exactly here. But I felt as if I were with my colleagues.
Yeah, it's quite, I think when you see a piece like that, you don't realize everything that goes into it. I mean, every member of the orchestra submitted multiple videos of themselves so that we could see them from different perspectives, and then edited it together so it was layered and created a visual representation that was appropriate for the piece that we were putting together. But it was quite an experience to source a bell in Berlin for David to be able to play. It makes you that much more grateful for a concert hall you could be in together. So you guys, I should move on now to the next part, but thank you so much to the members of the orchestra and to Louis for your talk. For those of you that are viewing, if you continue to have more questions for the orchestra or for Louis, many of them are going to be watching behind the scenes, and so keep posing them in the Q&A. But for now, if y'all will turn your videos off, and if I can ask all the education partners to join me on the screen. Thank you. So you've heard a little bit from me about virtual concertizing, but then what else? As an orchestra, trying to think of what a professional ensemble can do during this time, both from the perspective of concertizing, but also from the perspective of community engagement, and how we can do that in an effective way has been really heavy on our minds in the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra and at Lincoln Center in general. And so we've endeavored into a very exciting project with everybody you see on the screen now in an educational capacity. And so when you think about the times that we're living in and how we're isolated and there's not performances happening in concert halls, and so what do these music programs that are ongoing do with their students? How do they engage them? How are they communicating with them? And how are they concertizing? And what kind of resources do they have, or are they lacking in a time like this? And so when the orchestra was thinking about what it could do, we really wanted to offer ourselves as a resource, but our orchestra, the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra, is new in the education space. And so we approached these partners from New York City and their music programs to collaboratively self-discover how a professional orchestra can work with a music program to effectively benefit the young people that are participating in those programs. So what we've done is we took the first movement of Mozart's First Symphony, transposed it into the key of D so that it's more accessible in a sharp key instead of a flat key. And we also created parts for every instrument that exists. So Mozart's First Symphony with flute parts and trumpet parts and trombone parts. And then also worked with this panel of educators to create reduced parts so that it's accessible to very young students. And we're now in the process of teaching weekly masterclasses on Zoom with members of the orchestra and their students for music preparation, with the intention of releasing a video along with all of their students alongside the members of the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra in late August. And so what I want each program to have some time to represent themselves and discuss their programs and the work that they're doing. Part of the orchestra's engagement, when we think of it in a civil engagement capacity, we wanted to be resources. It was important for us to find a way to not put a square peg through a round hole, but actually, so what we've learned, it's been a learning experience for us as much as it has been for the students that are learning the first symphony, to figure out how we can tailor what we have to offer to different music programs. And when you think of it from the perspective of diversity, representation, and professional ensembles, and the lack thereof, particularly in the classical music field, to us, and meaning the orchestra, one of the very most authentic things that we can do to create a pathway to see a more equitable representation of diversity in a professional ensemble is about exposure, access, and inclusion at a very young age to a wide range of students, both for equitable representation of diversity as well as the future of classical music in general. So with that said, let me briefly introduce you to our panelists. From the Harlem School of the Arts, you'll see Yolanda Wins and Majid Khalik. If you guys can give a wave, and please introduce yourselves when you start speaking. From the Harmony program, you'll see Anne Fitzgibbon and Christina Placilla. From the Chamber Music Center of New York, we have Mary Jo Pagano and Sybil Joner. From the Juilliard Preparatory Division, we have Dean Weston Spratt. And then from BridgeMusik and double duty as a flute player in the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra is Tanya Vitek. So first, I'll ask Harlem School of the Arts to speak. So Yolanda and Majid, please stay up on the screen, and the rest of us can turn our cameras off.
All right, Ms. Wins, after you.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Wins, and I am Music Program Director at Harlem School of the Arts. Harlem School of the Arts is a non-for-profit arts education organization with students ranging as young as 18 months to adults. There's training in the 4 disciplines. There's theater, visual art, dance, and music. And in music, we offer private lessons in most of the instruments and voice. And along with group ensembles, there's theory class and music composition. On March 14th, as we were preparing for the lockdown, we were fortunate to be able to smoothly transition all of our classes to remote private lessons and group classes via Zoom. And we are currently offering remote classes and group classes for the summer, and will continue remotely for the fall, at least till January 2021 for sure. The building will be closed and the students will learn remotely. We offer a prep program, which is for advanced students between the ages of 10 and 18. And our prep program is a merit scholarship program that we offer the students. So they have an hour private lesson, a theory class, and an ensemble class, as well as master classes. And we've held a couple of master classes remotely with mostly Mozart musicians being one of them, as they are preparing our students for the collaborated performance of Mozart's First Symphony. It has been an interesting remote year and experience. I would say about 85% of our private lessons and classes continued. The challenge that we had was the little ones, ages 4 to 6, were a little harder in terms of training because parents have to also be a part of the process. And many of the parents felt like, I'm doing this Monday through Friday, homeschooling. I don't think I'm prepared to do a Saturday as well. So we made that age group, instead of training, more engagement, more fun, where you felt like you were watching a YouTube channel. And so our faculty needed to be a little bit more creative with that age group, especially when you're trying, most of those classes in that age group are more hands-on, where if you're with violin, the posture, the holding of the instrument, the same thing with piano, the fingering, it's more hands-on. So we made it more engaging for that age group. And our year-end recitals were also remote via Zoom, and we held those recitals and live streamed them via Facebook. So Jesse, I just wanted to give our audience an idea of one of our recitals. This is Harrelly Santiago, and she's playing her piece, and she's also a student of Mr. Majid Khalik, which I will introduce to you soon. Thank you. Thank you, Jessie. I don't know what happened. She was sideways, but that's a part of the technical issues that we may come across. Harrelly is a part of our prep program. I believe Harrelly is now 14. She just had a birthday, and we prepared her for LaGuardia that she was accepted to be in this year. She will be attending for the fall. So kudos to her instructor, and I'm going to introduce him to you, who's also an alumni of HSA, as well as on our faculty, Mr. Majid Khalik.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Ms. Wins, for the beautiful introduction, and thank you, Mostly Mozart Festival, for having me. First and foremost, this time that we've had together has been a really interesting, unique, but still yet beautiful. I'd like to always remind myself when in these times over these digital lines that had this been 20 or 30 years ago, this would not be possible. It would just be an end to this for the time being, and we would have to pick up after things settled into its regular way. So I'd like to actually be thankful for that. So in the time that I had with the students, I myself, a trained violinist, I play, Ms. Wynn said that I started at HSA at a young age, and I ended up going to the Juilliard school. And when I graduated, I became a professional violinist and a composer as well. But all the while, I started my teaching at HSA. That gave me the power and strength to actually figure a way to keep these students engaged in the way that I had been engaged and loved music. So I refused to let technology stop me. I had a computer at my disposal. I had Sibelius because I'm a composer, and I started with putting together mock-ups of pieces of music. Many times I had myself kind of arranging things in a more unconventional way. I would add backing tracks that had a little bit more rhythm to it. And I do want to say that at HSA, we do pride ourselves on making sure that there's a combination of the beauty and the complexity and simplicity of things like maybe a Mozart concerto or a Vivaldi, but we also like to add more modern touches. So we spice it up for the kids. We make sure that we're keeping a smile on our face because it is tough, but we keep it exciting.
And you did exactly that when you created the ensemble piece for your string ensemble. I know it was challenging to get the kids to play together. And so you creatively made that happen where the kids sent in their videos, and then you used, I don't know what, to use iMovie, where you put it all together and they played to a click track. Is that what happened?
Yeah, we had iMovie in the final video that we did, because over the few months that we had together, we ended up doing 3 pieces. I had purchased the Final Cut Pro, so that was a nice little bump up in technology. But it all was, I made it work, and the kids really they felt invested in the process, even reaching a larger audience. When you do one performance, usually it's never really able to be amplified in the way that it would be being put on YouTube and put on these social media platforms, where it could reach, instead of hundreds, it can reach thousands and sometimes millions.
And so this is a piece that we kind of used as our mantra when the crises hit. And so I'd like Jesse to show it. It's Lean on Me by our string ensemble conducted by Mr. Majid Khalik. Thank you, everyone. And again, my name is Yolanda Wins. I'm Music Program Director at HSA. And
My name is Majid Khalik. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Yolanda and Majid. I love seeing your students, and it's been such a pleasure to see them on Fridays with the orchestra.
thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you again to the Mostly Mozart organization and Lincoln Center for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
So next, we'll hand it over to the Harmony program, and Christina will join us. And just as a reminder, as we continue, if you have questions for Yolanda and Majid or any of our educators, please put them in the Q&A, and while they're in the background, they'll have an opportunity to answer them. So if you all will introduce yourselves one more time, I'll leave you to talk about Harmony program.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you, Walker, and thanks to the Mostly Mozart Festival for having the Harmony program here this year. I'm Ann Fitzgibbon. I'm the founder and executive director of the Harmony program, and I'll describe myself for our listeners. I am a white woman. I have long blonde hair. I'm wearing a green shirt, and I have a beige wall behind me and a ceiling fan over my head. I'm going to start by just saying a few words about the work of the Harmony program. We're an organization that brings musical training into New York City communities that need us most. So we're serving communities like the South Bronx, we're in Jamaica, Queens, Canarsie and Brooklyn, Upper and Lower Manhattan, among others. And what we do is we bring our instruction directly into communities. It's intensive instruction, anywhere from 5 to 10 hours each week. And we provide students also with scholarship opportunities and various cultural experiences as well. I want to emphasize, given the topic of this panel, that we are very much an ensemble-based organization. So our young people learn in small groups, and we immerse them very quickly in chamber ensembles and youth orchestras because we're aware of all the rich social learning that takes place in those environments. So when the COVID crisis hit, we were aware that we had to respond not only by continuing our lessons, but by continuing to provide our young people with a really supportive community. And that's important to them under the best of circumstances, and even more important these days. So I'm going to give you just a little taste of what the Harmony program looked and sounded like pre-crisis, and then I'll turn things over to Dr. Christy Placilla, who's really been responsible for transitioning us entirely to remote learning. So the clip is a minute long, and you're going to be seeing an orchestra of our young people performing at the Harmony program's 10th anniversary celebration. Thanks so much, Anne. My name is Dr. Chrissy Placilla, and for everybody, I am a Caucasian woman with blonde curly hair, and I'm sitting in a room with a blue wall behind me and family pictures. So I am the Director of Education for the Harmony program, and when the COVID crisis hit in mid-March, we had to basically pivot on a dime, just like the rest of our educational partners, to ensure that programming continued to reach our students. And one of the things that was really important to us was to make sure that our teachers had the tools that they would need to continue to engage with all of our kids, regardless of what neighborhood they were in. So we did some really serious training for our teachers, specifically in video recording techniques and best practices regarding how to utilize technology in a virtual classroom. And one of the things we really focused on was breaking down the fourth wall. So lots of our programming in the spring revolved around pre-recorded videos so that families could have access. Their schedules changed for a lot of families, and we knew that the normal times that kids would normally come to class just wouldn't work for families anymore. So what we did was we really focused on getting teachers to basically do the romper room model
of getting kids to interact. So, you know, we talked about the idea of the teacher going around the classroom and saying, I see Walker, I see Anne, and really making sure that they felt connected to the teacher in the classroom in this virtual environment. We also continued our group lessons throughout the spring semester, and we offered once a week video pre-recorded lessons via YouTube. The links were sent to schools and to our kids and their families so that they could access our lessons at a time that was convenient for them. Also, to continue to engage our students and make sure that they were getting a really rich experience, we created new classes for them. We created classes in alternative styles like klezmer music, some jazz and bluegrass, old-time music and pop music, so that they could learn those techniques and take them forward with them. We also instituted classes in music theory and composition so that they could create their own music during this time. And in addition, we created a yoga class that would help them deal with some of the stressors that became more normal as the crisis continued. We also instituted weekly office hours because what we were feeling after the first few weeks of going into the online lesson sphere is that our families and students were really missing the connection and the community that is so important to the Harmony program model. So every single week, our students would meet for 1 hour a week with our teachers in group classes. And what was really cool is kids that don't normally get to play together got to play together. So kids from the Bronx could play with kids from Canarsie, Brooklyn. Kids from Queens were playing with kids from Chinatown and Washington Heights. And so that was such a cool experience to see these kids meet and play together in the virtual sphere via Google Meets. We have also expanded our teacher training to include more things that were technology driven, as we also foresee that online learning is going to be so important as we go into the next school year. So our teachers have been trained in Google Classrooms, how to curate their own YouTube lessons, and to really give them all the tools they need to succeed as 21st century musicians and teachers. We are currently in our 8-week summer camp. We're actually finishing up and wrapping up week 4, and we're looking forward to concertizing quite a bit towards the end of the summer. So we will be holding virtual recitals where all 10 of our group lesson classes will be giving a recital, as well as our 4 ensembles. Our orchestra, our choir, our band, and our drumline will all be doing virtual recitals. And the way we're going to do this is really an interesting model. So we're utilizing Soundtrap, which is a free online, well, it's free for the first 60 days for educational partners to go online, and students can actually create their own tracks, but within virtually real time, they can hear their colleagues' tracks. The teacher can comment almost immediately. I mean, the processing time is less than 5 minutes per track, and they can get real-time comments from their colleagues in their Google Meet sessions that they have for summer camp. So what we'll do is towards the end of the summer, we will take all those audio clips and put them together and make sure that, first of all, that the sound quality is great and it's really well balanced. And then we're gonna do screen captures of our Google Meet sessions and then put them together music video style. Given the number of students we have and the number of ensembles and group lessons, this was the best solution for us at this time to create a virtual concertizing experience. And then finally, what we're going to do to also create the sense of community is to bring a sense of hope to our kids. One of the things we've noticed, and we've had conversations with families and students, is that a lot of our students are feeling really disheartened by the whole COVID crisis, just like many adults are. And so we wanted one piece that would bring them all together. And so we've chosen as our camp piece for the end of the summer, Lift Every Voice and Sing. So every student in our organization will perform that together as a group. So now you're going to see some pictures from our online learning. So you will be seeing pictures from our beginning orchestra, our music theory, one of our music theory classes, our alternative styles class, our group trumpet class, and our beginning violin class.
I think that most of our educators, our fellow educators, will agree that this has been a really challenging time, but it's also been an opportunity to experiment. And I think one of the most interesting new projects we introduced was a composition project for our young people. So to conclude our presentation, I want to just tell a little bit about what we did with our partners at the New York Philharmonic. We approached John Deek, who created their Very Young Composers Project, And together with our Harmony Program teaching artists, we led our students through a series of workshops that produced their very first entirely original composition that our students called Transitioning. And it was a really wonderful opportunity not only to connect our kids to each other, but to give them an outlet for expressing what they'd been going through over these many months. And I think when you hear it, you'll agree that it's a really powerful musical expression of what so many of us are feeling. We've put together this final clip. It's a very abridged version of some student reflections on the composition experience, and also just a little bit of the music that they composed themselves. And in this clip, they're performing together with 5 musicians from the New York Philharmonic. And if you want to hear the entirety of the piece, you can find it on the Harmony Program's Facebook page.
Would use an app called Flat.io, and then we would record our what we wanted on the piece on there.
Just notes start to form, and then like you can you get some basic drafts, and then you just like edit, revise that draft.
And in the piece, personally, I feel like there's expressions of maybe like anger or stress, or maybe like being depressed or sad, because knowing that there's such a radical change in our lifestyles.
I had to say the hardest part is definitely merging different compositions like with different people.
Collaboration and compromise were 2 things I learned a lot about.
Thanks. We'll just close out by thanking everyone again. It's really inspiring also to be hearing what our colleagues in the field are doing and learning from their examples as well. So thanks again, Walker, and to the Mostly Mozart Festival for inviting us to be a part of it this year. It's really exciting.
Yes, thank you so much, Walker.
Thrilled to participate and to be a part of this Activate Forum as well. And great to hear what you guys are doing to keep your program alive during the pandemic. Thank you for sharing. Next, we'll hear from the Chamber Music Center of New York and its leaders, Mary Jo and Sibyl. If you guys will take a minute to introduce yourselves again, and then we'll hear from you about your program.
Hello, I'm Mary Jo Pagano. I'm the founder and artistic director of the Chamber Music Center of New York. I am female with black hair, a little splotch of white up here, and a black CMC t-shirt. I have a piano in my background and actually a camera above my head that goes over my keyboard.
And I'm Sibyl Joner. I'm the director of orchestras at CMC. I'm a white female with long grayish hair. I'm also wearing a CMC t-shirt, slightly different from our Italy trip. And in my background is a shelf with painting supplies.
So I just want to thank you, Walker, and all the Lincoln Center people for inviting us to this panel discussion and for leading our kids in the preparation of the Mozart Symphony No. 1. The CMC program is a fairly new program, and it's based in chamber music and chamber orchestra. We just finished a 3-week online virtual summer program. We just finished it a couple of hours ago, where we offer chamber music and composition and theory and master classes and a whole bunch of lots of fun things, and we're kind of exhausted. And it's so fascinating to hear what everyone else is doing. You know, bravo to all of you. Wow, you got, you know, just the creativity and passion for, you know, teaching music is just really pretty extraordinary. When the COVID pandemic happened in March, there were a few things that were really, really important to us. First of all, we felt that we needed to keep our kids engaged and learning and practicing. And we also felt that they needed a sense of structure. We felt that they needed some sort of normalcy to their lives that had been so upended. So we kept our coaching sessions and orchestra rehearsals at the same time on Saturday, so that they knew what they were going to be doing on Saturday and when they would meet with us. And so, as all of you have experienced, because of the latency issues in the internet, we cannot play music together at the same time, which causes a lot of problems when you're a program that is entirely ensembles. So we had to really, put our heads together and come up with some ideas how to keep the kids engaged and how to continue with our chamber ensembles. We have 18 chamber ensembles and three chamber orchestras. So what we came up with, we had two projects that we did, a chamber music project and an orchestra project. For the chamber music project, what we decided is that each group, all 18 groups, each group would make a video of their piece and dedicate it to a group of frontline workers. So the first thing we did is we had to come up with a lot of creative rehearsal techniques, which Sybil will explain a little more later on. And then what we did is we asked them to make videos of themselves. So this is how we did it. We wanted to make it as real of a chamber music experience as possible. So rather than have a click track or a metronome in their ear, this is what we did. We would have one kid lay down a track or a part of a track and send it to the next kid, who would listen in one ear to their friend and then record on another device their part. And then they would send those back, and the coaches would then edit together these two kids' parts and send that on to the third kid, who would listen to their two friends in his ear or her ear and play along and record their part. Send it back, the coaches would edit it together, send it on if there was more members of the ensemble. Until this kept going. We did have two large groups. We had a quintet and a sextet, and that was quite challenging to get all of those pieces together with so many people. Then the coaches edited together their piece in complete form, kind of made it sound really, really nice, and then we started the video process, the video recording process, which was really, really fun. We sent their audio to them, and they would listen to their audio and videotape themselves, like lip syncing, like playing along with them, because we weren't going to use the sound of that, playing along with that. But here was the thing that we did. We said, first of all, we're going to put you, on the video, we're going to put you in chamber music formation. So you have to have your camera at a certain place. If you're first violin, you're here. If you're cellist, the camera's here, etc., to make it look like you're really in a chamber ensemble. And not only that, we want you to take cues from each other. We want you to pretend like your friend is in the room and look up at them, take a visual cue, move your body, show the music, be expressive. And it's actually kind of amazing because they really look like they're in the same room. We were quite pleased with that. It was a lot of fun. We turned them into actors at that point. They had to really act out their part. After we were done making those videos, then we sent it on to our editors. We had a great team of editors who took the group, the individual videos, connected them up with the audio, put the kids in chamber music formation, and then had made it visually interesting, not just sitting them up there, but if there were only two kids playing or two prominent voices, there would be two kids up there, and they'd move that out. It was very, very effective. And then the final thing is, since we had decided to dedicate this to our group of frontline workers, each video has a frontline worker that we were dedicating it to. We had the kids make thank you posters, and you would see that at the beginning of the video, and then at the end of the video, it would dissolve into a photo of a frontline worker. And that was what we did. We did 18 of them, and it was really wonderful. And we have a clip now of 3 of our groups. The first group is a 11-year-old group playing the Frank Bridge Saltarello, and then it's going to go into the Debussy Quartet, and then a high school woodwind and piano group. They're just clips, just snippets of it. You can go to our YouTube channel, Chamber Music Center of New York, if you want to see, you know, the entire things. They're there. But this is just a clip. Jesse, would you like to play our chamber music clip? Thanks. So, yeah, that I still marvel at how well they look like they're actually sitting next to their friends in the same room. So, you know, we wanted to keep our orchestras also alive and moving and growing. And so, you know, we did some short versions of that virtual orchestra where, you know, you listen to a click track and you record your thing and you put together those orchestras. We thought that was really, really fun. But then we came up with the idea that if we collaborated with a youth orchestra in Switzerland that we had actually collaborated with a few years ago, that we could actually reach across the ocean and create a virtual orchestra across the ocean. So we decided to use the Egmont Overture of Beethoven, since it's the Beethoven birthday year, to make this piece with the two orchestras. When we called them up, when we called the conductor up, they were so excited, a way to sort of reunite with them from a few years ago and to do something meaningful together. So what it really helped the kids feel is that this is a worldwide pandemic. This affects everyone. We're all in it together, you know, all the countries. So that was like an added sort of realization that the kids had as we were working on it. We wanted to capture the feelings and emotions of the young musicians. So we asked filmmaker Marty Taub to produce a documentary on the making of the concert video. And just to be able to illustrate how our young people are coping with this pandemic and how the power of music can really bring everyone together. So we ended up with two videos. One video is the documentary, and the other one is the actual concert video itself. Sybille's going to explain a little bit of the rehearsal process that she used for the orchestra. And then after that, we will show you a short clip from the documentary video.
So again, we did not use click tracks, but we decided together with the Swiss conductor that we would use Scholti's version of the Egmont Overture as an underlying track. And it's really interesting because his interpretation is pretty free, it's not very metronomic, and so actually we had some trouble with being able to follow in some spots, so I put some counting over those spots and so forth to help the young musicians being able to be really together with Scholti, which then meant that they were together with each other. And to prepare for the recordings on this side of the Atlantic, we rehearsed together on Zoom. And my first rule when we rehearse together on Zoom is that every child should play as much as possible. Basically, I call this engagement through participation. And so we would switch. Sometimes when we were just learning the piece, we would have one student lead a bigger chunk and everybody on mute would play with that student. So that student would say, you know, would count in and then be the leader. So I could hear how that student is doing. That student would feel good because they were the leader, and everybody else still got to play all the time, right? And then we would switch leaders around depending on which section we were playing. And then I would switch that up with doing little chunks, like 2, 3, or 4 bars, and work on something specific, like, oh, let's look into the articulation for this spot, and everybody plays it. And so we tried to get them to be, you know, responsive and unmute and do it. Now you do it. Now you do it, to keep them on their toes, to try to stay engaged and participating at all times. Because it's really easy on Zoom when you, as a young person, when you have, probably also as an older person, when you have a screen, it's so easy to get distracted. Oh, let me look here at my email. Let me look at my friend's Discord. Let me, you know, look at this little game, you know. So we try to engage them so that they stay with us and stay with the music. Another thing we did was sound share on Zoom. So I would, for example, play part of the Schulte recording, or with chamber music. Once we did the same kind of techniques with chamber music when we practiced, and we would have their own recordings whenever they were done. We would play them for them. So that gave them a feeling of, actually, we're still rehearsing. We're still playing together. There's more than one voice. I'm not just hearing myself. So this is how we tried to recreate and give them still the joy of music, because I feel a lot of times for the young musicians, the playing together and the sounds together is what motivates them. This is why they come every Saturday, right? And so we didn't have that anymore, but we, you know, on Zoom, we tried to get it as much as possible. So that's, with those techniques is what we used all throughout for chamber music and orchestra and so forth.
Yes, use those techniques for chamber music as well. Sybil is a real master at teaching on Zoom. I learned so much from her. Anyway, Jesse, the next video is just a clip, a segment from the documentary video that we made that expresses really the feelings of the kids during this time.
I felt so isolated from my friends, doing nothing.
The music stopped. No playing together, which I really miss.
A lot of evenings I was just sitting at home thinking, yeah, now I should be on the stage. Now Peace of Mind should be played. Now I should be working with people. Now I should do music.
This virus takes a hold of everything and makes everything a standstill, whether it's businesses, schools, the government, anything.
We weren't able to make music together, but it also opened new doors for us to make music in a different way.
So what we've been doing at CMC was finding new ways to come together and create music.
One day we're going about our everyday business, and then suddenly overnight everything stopped. But we knew we couldn't let the music stop, that somehow we had to keep going. And that's when the idea came about to join forces with a youth orchestra that we have collaborated with in the past, the Swiss youth orchestra Il Mosaico. And together we have created a virtual orchestra across the ocean.
The fact that we've been able to still stay together during the dark times is a testament to how tight-knit we are and how resilient we are, and that when we come out the other side, we're going to be even 10 times stronger than we were when we went into it.
So I just wanted to point out that one thing we did is the youth orchestra in Switzerland were wearing black with a splash of yellow, and the CMC students were wearing white with a splash of red. So that was how we distinguished those our different orchestras. You know, please feel free to go to our YouTube channel and see the entire movie. Thank you so much, Walker.
Thank you, Mary Jo and Sybil. Fascinating to hear how you've been so innovative during this time. I love seeing that camera over your head so students can see your keys. Excellent job. Thank you very much. Next, let me introduce Weston Spratt, the Dean of the Preparatory Division at Juilliard School, so working with pre-college and MAP program.
Hi, everybody. As Walker just said, my name is Weston Spratt. I'm the Dean of the Preparatory Division at the Juilliard School, which the Preparatory Division is made up of two programs that I'll talk to you about a little bit today. One is the Music Advancement Program, and the other is Juilliard Pre-College. I wanted to say thank you, Walker, and everyone at Mostly Mozart Festival for inviting me here to speak with all of you. I think it's really just amazing to hear about all the work that's happening around New York City with students everywhere, just absolutely incredible. And there are so many things that I'm seeing in the videos that other people are sharing that I find to be incredibly inspiring. I love seeing that row of trombone players with the harmony program. And I'll tell you a little bit first about the music advancement program. Actually, Walker, really quickly, can you tell me, can you hear me clearly? Because I'm seeing a couple of frozen screens.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, in the some of the technological issues that we had, that I wasn't talking in the ethers and nothing was happening. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm an African-American male wearing a white collared shirt, sitting at a table, and in a mirror that's behind me, you can see a pretty colorful shaded lamp. So first I want to tell you about the Music Advancement Program, which is a program at Juilliard that runs for students between the ages of 8 and 18. We seek out, in particular, students from underrepresented and underserved communities. We have about 70 students in the program. It's a Saturday program that starts each Saturday at about 8:30 in the morning with a class that we call Morning Rally, which focuses on citizenship, personal development, and social awareness. And we end every day together with chorus at 4 p.m. And in between that time, students are receiving private lessons, chamber music, music theory and ear training. They do studio class, wind ensemble, orchestra, electives, et cetera, et cetera. And we also have electives called like group composition and group piano. And in the era of COVID, just like everyone else, we've had to switch to remote learning. And I could tell you a little bit about that, but we also prepared a video that I'd like to share now that will give a pretty clear overview of what's been happening in the remote learning environment at MAP. So if we could share that video now, that would be fantastic.
All right. So how are you all doing today?
Good, how are you?
What is community right now that we're all in our own homes? I asked y'all to think about this question before today, but really, what do you think that community means to you now? Oh, Adrian, could you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit more about this idea that you put in the chat of a unity between people that cannot be broken easily?
I mean, yeah, so like when you have a true community, kind of like this one, it's definitely something, it's a connection that you don't lose too easily, and it's not a connection that really dissipates too fast.
What allows you to still feel that sense of connection to the other people here?
Definitely, like this rally, just seeing everyone, things like the classes, the lessons, stuff like that.
Did you all enjoy digging into Ravel String Quartet this week?
Yes.
I love the first two movements.
I love
Yeah.
the fourth movement. I love the fourth movement.
So we're talking today about the first two movements of Ravel. And there he is. And I thought we should have this picture up, not just to see what he looks like, but this is also my like quarantine beard goals currently.
A lot of times we think of the things we haven't done and we need to focus on the things we have actually accomplished. If you can look at yourself and say, I'm better at this than I was 2 months ago, that's progress I'm making. And I've seen it happen so many times that it seems like some people are out of the gate and we're here. And then what happens, because of your preparation, you pass those people up and they become stagnant. You know, it's not about what they've done as much as what you're doing.
Did we finish the video there, Walker?
I think so. I think we've lost it for a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. So at any rate, that gives you an idea of what the remote environment at Juilliard MAP has looked like for the last few months. And we've also been doing something very similar in the Juilliard Pre-College, which is led by Veda Kaplinsky, is our artistic advisor. I should have mentioned previously, Anthony McGill, who's also the principal clarinetist of the New York Philharmonic, is our artistic director in MAP. So MAP is a local program. All of our students come from the New York tri-state area. And for Juilliard Pre-College, it's very much a global program. We have also students from ages 8 through 18, but we're about 30% international. We have students on all the orchestral instruments, plus piano, voice, guitar, and composition. And right now, we're a little bit over 300 students. It's also a Saturday program, runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And similar to MAP, students are receiving lessons, chamber music, music theory, and ear training, studio classes, and electives. We have 3 orchestras and 2 choruses, and we serve as a bridge program not only to conservatory but also to anything else. So even though we're always very excited when students are successful in music, we don't push them in that direction. We have 100% of our graduates from Juilliard Pre-College go on to college. And about 50% of those go into music, and about 50% of those go on to things that are non-musical. I'd say about 25% of our graduates, on average, go on to actually study at Juilliard. And so the other video that we have prepared to show you today kind of is a year in review video that we actually put together for what turned out to be our remote online commencement. And it'll give you a little bit of a quick overview. The video is about 1 minute of what the transition was like from the beginning of the school year and into the remote environment. So you'll get a pretty good feeling for what it was like to go from our normal circumstance to what is now the new normal circumstance. So if we can show that video now, that would be great. Yeah, so that's a pretty clear view of what Juilliard Pre-College looks like. And I think one thing that's worth mentioning is that Juilliard has never before done a really robust summer program for prep division students. But considering what happened this year, we scrambled, basically, for lack of a better term, and we were able to put together a pretty robust summer program, which actually yesterday was the conclusion of our 3rd week. We have a 5-week program running Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the students in our prep division. So we have a whole series of classes in the morning that are academic classes. And actually, this COVID era has been a silver lining because it provided us the platform and the reason to do some things that we've never done before and rethink some things. Something that was really valuable for me was making sure that we have very reflective programming. So even from the beginning of this entire school year, we've made an effort to make sure that every single large ensemble program has underrepresented composers, every single one, just as a rule. So this year we had Anna Klein and Reveltis and Coleridge Taylor and George Walker on our programs. And this summer, we've also done some pretty interesting and new academic classes, and we have students from both pre-college and MAP taking those classes every morning. So we have incoming students, current students, and students who just recently graduated are all participating in this summer programming, and we're able to offer really cool classes like History of Jazz, Introduction to Ethnomusicology, Black Music in America, one of my favorite course titles was "Why Does Modern Music Sound So Weird?" Things like that. And during our lunch hours, we've been able to have guest interviews with guest artists, people like Isabel Leonard and Javier Camarena, Conrad Tao, Damari McGill, Joe Conyers, and Orly Shaham. And then during the afternoons, we have a series of performance classes so that our students still get an opportunity to engage as players and play in a masterclass style. So I'm really excited that we're able to do that, and that was definitely a response to what was happening in our current environment. I had a meeting with the parents from the MAP Parents Association near the end of the school year, and I was asking them what their feelings were like about the year. And they were very happy about what we were able to do with their students throughout the year, but I could tell there was this palpable sense of concern about what was going to happen to their students over the summer. So many of them originally had plans to go on to external summer music programs that were now being canceled, and there was this concern about an atrophy in skill and a lack of ability to continue to be engaged in the music. And so I'm thankful we were able to do that. And it's fun to sit in some of these classes, like we had a music technology class this past week, or movement in music, where kids are getting to learn things about yoga and general wellness and things like that, and see students continuing to engage in the summer. And it's been incredible to see how committed our faculty and staff have been to this work. Everyone has really stepped up to the challenge, and the students have as well. So that's all I wanted to share today. And thanks again to Walker and Mostly Mozart Festival for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Weston. Awesome to hear about the robust programming at Juilliard. Okay, I know for those of you watching, I know we're running just a little bit late, but if you'll hang with me, one more program to hear from, and it's Tanya Vitek's BridgeMusik program. In addition to running this amazing program, she also plays flute in the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra, so thrilled to hear from her.
Thanks a lot, Walker, and it's great to be here. And I'm a white woman with blonde hair sitting in front of actually a photo of where my students in my program, BridgeMusik, usually play. So I actually started my career, was at Juilliard, I went to Juilliard, and then I started my career as a teaching artist at Lincoln Center. And so it's great to be back here in this capacity as a flutist and also as the director of BridgeMusik. And so BridgeMusik is an organization that I created with my husband to create connections between professional musicians, young musicians, and the community up where we live in Rockland County, New York. And I think that the heart of BridgeMusik is really sort of the heart of what I'm hearing from all the panelists today, and is so inspiring. It's the idea of how can music create and build community. And I think that this is something that all of these programs are really doing, and it's really inspiring. And for me, actually, I'm a parent of two young musicians, and what really kept me going when on March 13th, everything had been canceled and there was no performances and everything stopped, what really inspired me forward were my children's music lessons. And so that's what we've seen on the panel, the way that all of these programs continued, and they just, were able to transform themselves overnight. So it's just incredible to see this and to hear people share their experiences. So one of the very first things that we did with BridgeMusik was we were having a concert. We were supposed to have a live concert on April 6th. And it was called The Story of Tango, and it was a chance for local schools, like we partner with local school districts, giving kids from those school districts additional opportunities to perform with professional musicians in the community. And so the Story of the Tango was a concert where our students were going to get a chance to play with Pedro Gerardo, who's a Latin Grammy award-winning bassist, incredible musician, and his tango trio, along with some of our colleagues from the New York City Ballet, where I play, and the Met Opera Orchestra. So it was a really exciting thing. We were partnering with a new school district where the kids had never participated in our program, and they were so excited. So what we decided to do was we decided to move the entire concert into a virtual format. So the full concert is like a 70-minute concert. But what we did was, well, first of all, I reached out to one of the public school music teachers that we were going to partner with. And I asked him if he'd be interested to participate. And what he told me, and this was like mid-March to late March, so it was very early in the pandemic, and he said that at their school district, they were not allowed to have any in-person contact with their students. So they were not allowed to have any live instruction. And so I couldn't even imagine what that would be like as a music teacher to not be able to teach the students live. So, this was he was very eager to join, as were the other educators. And then it gave us a chance to, even though we couldn't be live with the students and the music teachers couldn't be live with their students right away, it gave us a chance to learn new music, to participate in a new musical genre, and to really feel part of that community that I think we're all yearning for, to be part of the community. So that's really what the first project was that we did. You can learn more about the other things that we're doing. We're in the middle of our big summer festival right now. But this experience, I think, has taught us that there's a lot of opportunities that we never could have imagined. So the opportunity for our young musicians to play with the musicians from Mostly Mozart, and for all of these musicians in these other programs we've heard about to work with composers and to partner with their colleagues, their friends in new ways, is really inspiring. So anyway, you're just going to see a short excerpt of one of the songs. The entire concert is 70 minutes. It's actually partially footage from a concert we did last year with Pedro. So it starts with some prior footage, and then it moves into the virtual footage that the kids took, in their homes, and our colleagues took in their homes during the pandemic, during quarantine. And I just wanted to say before we watch it, and as I watched every single video that we saw today, I was thinking about how to imagine what those students were going through as they were making those videos is really powerful, Like, they were in the middle of a pandemic in the worst hit area in the world at this time when they made the videos. So, I hope you enjoyed this little clip. You can watch the whole concert. It's on our YouTube channel. And thank you to Mostly Mozart and for making, this a reality for all of us. And I hope we can come together more to discuss and share ideas. So I guess, Jesse, if you can play the clip now. Thank you so much, Walker. Thanks for the opportunity, and thank you to all of the panelists. It was so inspiring to hear from all of you, and to Louis and to the members of the orchestra.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Walker.
That was beautiful. If all the panelists can come back just so we can see you one more time. Thank you very much. So on behalf of the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra, thank you so much for collaborating with us and letting us learn from you as much as I hope we were able to be an asset to you. And thank you to the Lincoln Center Education team and Activate for giving us a forum to present this great work and see program work from all of these amazing educators that have been participating in this activity this summer.